Karen Gale,
Here.
Gerald Mater,
Here.
Michael Suter,
Here.
Don Niemer,
Here.
Alderman Weigel,
Here.
Alderman Haas.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. First thing on the agenda, approval of the minutes of the March 14th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, can I have a motion?
I move approval.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes stand approved. First item on the agenda, the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas. Public hearing to be considered, the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD Section 8, Housing Choice Voucher, HCV Program, seeking public contentment to consider the change to the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas. There. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Contents of the meeting. I call this meeting the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas to order, and we already had roll call. Thank you. I, Gerald Mater, Chairman of the Community Development Authority, the notice of the public hearing will now be read. We got a different one than this one, or?
You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead, and then you got it.
Notice is hereby given that the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas will hold an in-person meeting on March 20th, 2023 at 6 p.m. or soon thereafter as a matter to be heard, seeking a public comment and consideration of proposed changes to the CDA's administrative plan for the U.S. Department of Housing and Development Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. You may express your opinions in writing to the Community Development Authority, which we have not received any, and orally here tonight at the public meeting. The administrative plan will be available for public comment on our website following the hearing. The administrative plan will be submitted to HUD following a completion of a 30-day comment period. That's all we have, Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll go to number 5. The purpose of this hearing to afford a full opportunity to all interested parties to express their views and propose consideration of the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas, U.S. Department of Housing, Urban Development, HUD Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher, HCV Program, seeking public comments and consideration of the change to the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas Administration Plan. B, following the close of the hearing, the authority will consider and vote on a resolution authorizing the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas, U.S. Department of Housing, Urban Development, HUD Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher, HCV Program, seeking public comments and consideration of to change the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas Administration Plan. If adopted, the resolution will be submitted to the Community Common Council of the City of West Dallas for approval as provided by U.S. Federal Code of Wisconsin statutes. I now ask Patrick, the Executive Director of the Authority, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Scher and Danielle Carrington.
Thank you, everybody. Good to be here tonight. My name is Steve Scher. I'm the Manager of Planning and Zoning, and we're pleased to be here. To my right is Danielle Carrington. She's our Community Development Senior Planner. So she oversees our housing office, the Community Development Block Grant Program, and neighborhood associations. So before she begins her presentation here, I just want to say that the changes to our administrative plan, the admin plan being basically the rule book for housing, the rollout of our Housing Choice Voucher Program, and underneath that umbrella that's established by HUD, basically the rules that, with HUD being the overarching federal body, we have our housing authority, the city, landlords, and tenants, and they all need to abide by these rules within the admin plan. So we've got some changes this evening. I'm going to turn it over to Danielle to go over a summary of the things that we're recommending. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. The purpose of the administrative plan changes are the City of West Dallas Public Housing Authority. We have been put under really a charge by the HUD to increase our leasing outcomes by utilizing 100% of our fiscal year 2023 annual budget authority, or ABA, and ultimately creating an outcome for the housing assistance payment, or HAP, expense reserves in the Housing Choice Voucher Program to remain between 4% and 6%. So this is our main goal of what we're trying to move towards. Currently, if you look at the Department of Housing and Urban Development Housing Voucher Data Dashboard, since 2015, we've had some fluctuations in our budget utilization as well as our leasing utilization. If you pay attention to the last 3 years of 2020 to 2021, you'll see that we've had some dips in our success of our leasing rates, which we know that COVID had an impact on that. And now we're trying to get to a place where we are utilizing all of our budget authority as well as our success rates in leasing, increasing those. Our first chapter that we're going to be covering this evening is going to be Chapter 4, the application, waitlist, and tenant. We tried to simplify it for you, or tenant selection, the current process, the proposed changes, and the anticipated outcomes. The first current process that we're actually going through is that we currently send encrypted electronic notices to all program participants, and then we also intake about 800 applications, which we did in 2021. We also closed the wait list entirely, concluding each open enrollment period. And for the selection method, we've offered a total of 5 preferences by a program entry of a lottery system. Now, our proposed changes, we are going to streamline our communications through Assistant Check, which is through our Managing Information System through MRI or HAPI. So we want to make sure that communication is streamlined and we can get information to and from participants easily. We want to bring that intake process where we have applications in order to utilize the Housing Choice Voucher resources. So we changed that number. We're going to be changing that number from 800 applications. And then we move on to our annual continual intake of critical need populations, which are homeless, and FYI, which is a fostering youth initiative program. And then we want to be able to eliminate non-referral preferences, allowing eligibility ease of the program entry. So those are our proposed changes. What are the anticipated outcomes? For placement on the waiting list, we want to have consistent utilization of the Housing Management Information System through secure electronic communications. So instead of sending that encrypted electronic communication through email, we'll send it through Assistance Check, where each participant is able to set up through email, and that communication goes directly to and from them. For open enrollment, instead of having 800 applications, we plan to intake a total of 1,500 for open enrollment to increase our leasing potential. So what that means is that if we have to put out, when we open our open enrollment in April, and we take in 1,500 applications and we have to issue 100 vouchers, we'll have to pull at least 300 individuals from that wait list in order to issue those 100 vouchers. So that's why we uptick that number from 800 to 1,500. Moving on to 4-11C, partner with social services agencies to place vulnerable populations. We currently had 5 total preferences. We're going to move them to 2, which we're going to focus on the homeless population and fostering youth initiative, which brings that number, which brings that ease of eligibility, being able to verify for our housing staff in order to get people eligible to get them housed. And finally, it'll certify eligibility in a timely issue of vouchers at a faster rate. So instead of having those 5 selected preferences, we'll go ahead and have those 2 selected preferences, and then the only thing that we'll have to certify would be income, assets, as well as background checks, which will ease that eligibility into the program. Moving on to our Administrative Plan, Chapter 6, Income and Subsidy. Our current procedures right now is that we have a payment standard of 110% above fair market rate. And fair market rate are the rents that are set at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 bedroom units that are for that market area. Our proposed changes is that we establish a payment standard up to 120% through a HUD special waiver to meet those fair market rate rents that we're actually looking for. So if you look down at the bottom, our current payment standards, or our FMRs for 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms are on the top row, and our current payment standards is that 110%. So if you have a 1 bedroom, the fair market rate is $909. Our payment standard at 110% is actually $999. But if you look up in those proposed changes in the red column, you'll see that that payment standard, raising it to 120%, will bring that 1 bedroom payment standard to $1,091. If you do a fair market rate study of rents in this area, you'll see that the average 1 bedroom is about $1,000. So in order to make sure that we don't have individuals paying over that 30% of their income, of their annual or adjusted income, we want to be able to raise those payment standards to give them a better opportunity to find housing that is available for the fair market rate rent. Moving on to the anticipated outcomes for the income and subsidy. If we apply a payment standard to the current initial housing choice voucher household, it'll utilize 100% of our annual budget authority, which that is part of our leasing plan goal, which we have HAP reserves at a current of 13.8%. If you saw on that first slide, HUD is charging us to get those reserves down to between 4 and 6% because we are currently at 13.8%. If we do this increase of 120%, the end of year change will be a change of $5,572. So what does that mean? Our average monthly HAP right now is $276,900. So if we take that $276,900 plus that $5,572, which is going to be the change of year, we'll actually be at a HAP monthly average HAP of $2,082,472. Excuse me, everybody. So what that'll do is it'll pull from those reserves to bring that 13.8% and get us more to that goal of between 4 and 5% of our HAP reserve. So that will be the purpose of increasing that payment standard to 120% based on the 110% what it already is right now. This is just a short look at the tool of tools where a tool that HUD uses to determine, and it's kind of small, I can't zoom in on it, but it determines how many households. We currently have 28% of households paying over their annual or adjusted income. So what that means is that if we have someone who's living in a unit and the rent becomes unreasonable or unaffordable, they'll be reissued a voucher and have to go find a place to live. But if they find a place that the payment standard is that rent is over the payment standard, they're going to be paying the remainder of that amount of rent. And it can range from a low amount to $30 up to $100, which if we have individuals on a fixed income, 30%, that's going to take a lot of what they're already making. So that will be the purpose of increasing to 120% payment standard. Moving on to the Administrative Plan, Chapter 7, Verification. Our current procedures for verification would be that our waitlist preference is by a lottery selection system during open enrollment. And we currently have those 5 standards of elderly, homeless, veterans, disabled, and residents of West Allis. Those will be our 5 what we call preferences. Our proposed change would be to have a referral preference for 2 specific populations. And what those populations are the fostering youth and the homeless initiative. And what this process will do will eliminate the selection preference while still benefiting from the program assistance. And what I mean by that is if you look at disabled households have the opportunity to have where they'll have an allowance for out-of-pocket medical expenses or expenses itself. They'll still be able to have those same benefits of the program. Even if we remove those preferences, it'll still give ease to program entry and still provide the benefit of the program. So the anticipated outcomes will be utilizing a continuum of care, which we already have established, and we'll have a year-round referral system. So instead of closing that open enrollment once we open in April 2023, we're going to close it after 48 hours. However, it will remain open year-round by a referral system through the continuum of care and through the HMIS system, which is the Housing Management Information System, and by fostering youth. So anytime during the year, these 2 populations will be referred by referral only, that we will be able to get them into the housing voucher program, housing choice voucher, excuse me. And then for our other populations, it'll ease that burden, and they'll just be able to be verified by their income, their assets, and their background for program entry eligibility. So just because we're removing these preferences, that doesn't mean that it'll create any additional barriers. It's actually going to eliminate those barriers. How does it does that? When we are verifying, let's say we have to verify someone who is homeless, we go through the HMIS system or we go through the continuum of care. If we have disabled households, they will have to show those verifications that they are actually disabled. So it'll just kind of cut that time in half that we'll just be able to verify by the income, assets, and background for program entry eligibility. Moving on to the Administrative Plan, Chapter 9, General Leasing Policies, Tenancy and Lease Addendum. Currently, our housing authority does not have any type of monetary landlord incentive at this time. What we want to do, or that proposed change, is to add a new policy where we are able to offer a leasing incentive up to $300 to participating landlords of the Housing Choice Voucher Program as a lease-up bonus. And this incentive can be done during any calendar month of any operational year. However, we have the option to cease this landlord incentive based on our program's annual budget authority, meaning that if we get to a point where we see that our annual budget authority is going below that suggested percentage rate of 4 and 5%, we will have the opportunity to be able to cease the program, and that language will be in the actual changes of the admin plan. The anticipated outcome will be to attract new landlords as well as maintain current landlords, and then to accommodate the vouchers issue in accordance with our 2023 Housing Choice Voucher Leasing Plan of open enrollment. So if we have been charged to issue 100 vouchers in the month of May and June, and we are saturating the market, we have to be able to have available units or landlords willing to work with the program, and that is providing that incentive to those landlords to welcome them to the program. Overall, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, our 2023 operational year administrative plan updates are all put in place to be able to reduce the barriers to assist those who are looking through permanent housing through the Section 8 program. And through the Community Development City Authority of West Allis, we are looking to apply our leasing plan standards set forth by the Department of Housing and Urban Development to spend down our current HAP reserves, which are actually at 13.8%. And then we are anticipating an overall 1.7 increase in annual budget authority. So all of these amendments that we are looking to make, or the updates in the admin plan, are directly tied to these 2 points here. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Niemeyer.
What's the, how does eliminating the residents of West Allis increase the program?
So at one time, the selection of preferences with our housing staff team thought that being able to put out the residents of West Allis as a preference would bring more individuals in so we could get them certified, but it didn't. Looking at the data, it didn't happen. So what happens when we're making these updates to the admin plans, which we're looking at data and we're looking at trends, which goes to our actual leasing plan, our success rates, and our attrition rates. Our attrition rates is how many people are leaving the program per month, and our success rates are how many vouchers are we getting secured, which means that we have individuals in leases, we have their RTAs, and we're able to issue a HAP contract. So based on that data of the last 2 years, based on open enrollment from 2021, having West Allis residents as a preference didn't show that we were increasing voucher issuance. The issue that we have is what we're talking about, units in stock. If we have a lot of families that are looking for 3 and 4 bedroom single family homes or apartments, we don't have that stock. We can only work with what we have, and that is what directly ties into why we're trying to promote this landlord incentive. So, and to answer your question, for the City of West Allis residents, they wouldn't be locked out. If someone with open enrollment for 2023 wanted to apply and they are a City of West Allis resident, we'll eliminate those barriers, and the only thing that we're looking for is to make sure that they are eligible by income, assets, and background.
I didn't hear anywhere in there that it helped the program. So the part that I'm confused about too is, isn't the goal of the program to get people off this program? Why are we trying to get them on? If we're seeing people get off, isn't that what we want?
Yeah, we actually got another 25 vouchers from HUD that were issued to us earlier this year, and so we're just trying to increase the success rate with that. We also do have contracted with Lutheran Social Services. They run a family self-sufficiency program, and the goal of that program is to help benefit people to do just that, to get them off. Certain monies that they make can be put into escrow to help them eventually get off the program. But
I just want to make sure that the
Yeah.
incentives are not in the right place. I understand we have more vouchers to use, but that doesn't mean we want to. We don't want to incentivize people to get off the program.
So HUD has already contracted us for 638
38.
units. So they want to see your participation go up in relationship to the budget funding that we're receiving. And so we're averaging below where they would like to see us
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
a certain threshold. They don't give us enough money to fund 638 vouchers, all right? Just because of the rents, et cetera. In every community, the budget is short the goal of the number of vouchers. But you still have to get your participation up. What we're caught in right now is a loop of calling people off the waiting list, and they get 120 days to find a unit, like Danielle was outlining, and they don't lease up. So we don't earn any admin fee on that. If we get our participation up, we earn more admin fee that sustains the housing program. And then HUD sees the money not going anywhere in terms of, because we're short in terms of the number of vouchers we're issuing, and they're going, you need to spend your money. For HUD, it's about spending money.
So so why aren't we leasing up? Is there not enough housing stock in West Dallas?
That's the problem that our families are running into. I mean, I spoke with a family today that received their voucher, and they're approaching we have an initial 60-day period to lease up, but it can be extended up to 120 days, which is maximum up to HUD compliance standards. So we have a mother with 4 children looking for a 3-bedroom unit and haven't been able to find one. And we try to provide those tools that they need to be able to. We provide them with the landlord list availability of landlords who work with Section 8 programs. We tell them, to be proactive. We're starting sessions. We're providing those soft skills, knowing how to talk to landlords. It's just like if you're applying for a job or you're looking for something. Sometimes these participants need those soft skills to be able to move towards self-sufficiency, what you're talking about, what you initially talked about. Isn't this program something that to help you try to get on your feet to be self-sufficient? That's what it's about. That's what we want to be able to do. But there are other aspects that need to be, included to make sure that these families are successful. So to answer your question, it's the housing stock, and that's what goes into the landlord assistance, where we're saying, okay, this will be something you're helping a family out. This will be a contract that you'll be able to receive current rent. We have our HQS standards that'll be able to say this is how housing should, the standards that quality for someone to live in, the tenant responsibility, the landlord responsibility. So there are a lot of working pieces that goes with this program, but
Has there been any studies done on these landlord incentives? If the housing stock isn't enough to fill our existing vouchers, we're gonna artificially provide the landlords $300. Is that gonna raise the rents in West Dallas? Is that gonna take people who would otherwise not be in the program and crowd out those people out of renting in West Dallas?
I mean, through our research, working and reaching out to other PHAs, success in leasing rates is something that we deal with at Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program all around the country. It's about being responsive and, also being innovative. I mean, some problems will never be eradicated. We just can, try to do what we can do. But I completely understand what you're saying. If we're giving this $300 incentive, is that going to give landlords the idea to be able to raise their rents, which goes directly into raising the payment standards to be able to compete with the market rents?
Is that gonna crowd out people that otherwise would have rented in West Dallas without the program? I have a lot of, obviously with these questions, I have a lot of issues.
We should probably close the
These
public
changes.
hearing part and then go into, there's a resolution on this and then have the discussion on items.
I'm sorry?
I just say we should close the public hearing and then on the resolution have further discussion.
Are
I
you
don't
done?
know if anybody online has questions? I didn't hear anybody on the Zoom.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions in regard to the public hearing? All right, then we'll read, technically should read this. This here, we recognize, they're not here.
You don't have to read it.
Okay, we can read it. There being no other parties wishing to address the authority, I declare this closed and will now proceed to the next order of business. Okay, now we'll go to item number 2. Notice the public hearing seeking
Item 3.
item 3. No, yeah. Item 3, resolution authorizing the change of the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas Administrative Plan for the U.S. Department of Housing and Development of HUD Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher HCV Program. Patrick?
Again, this is Steve and
Continuing the discussion, I
Danielle
guess,
on
yeah.
this. And
Okay.
I think those are relevant points that have been expressed. I mean, those are something that we probably should think about in terms of the incentive and the impact to the rental market.
Well, I think the other point is too, we're gonna be capped at a certain point anyway. I mean, if we only have 638 vouchers and we're at 514 now, I mean, we're not gonna be using up all of the budget capacity, but we do wanna get more vouchers out there to get closer to that 638 number, you know, budget allowing, for that. So abiding by, you know, working with our HUD reps and trying to spend down that budget down to that, you know, not to go below that 4 to 6%. You know, and if it's overwhelmingly, if we suddenly just get this huge pool of landlords and influx of tenants, I guess we're gonna know something really quick, that it's working. Or on the other hand, if everything stays the same, that it's not working. And we can adjust that, I guess, with the way this is written, we're able to adjust and either, you know, continue the payments or stop them based on, you know, our existing budget authority. So,
Just not to confuse it more, but another avenue under the program is project-based. We did project-based vouchers for Beloit Road Senior Housing Complex, where you make a special allocation to a redevelopment project. That's still an opportunity, and that gets actually vouchers utilized the quickest, because you put it right into a development. What this is, the harder process is you have to go, they're portable, so they can go anywhere in the city and try to find a unit.
Yeah, Patrick, that's a threshold question. Is it anywhere in the city of West Allis, or my understanding from
Anywhere in the city of West Allis.
I thought that these are portable, could be used outside of West Allis. That was the presentation in other years.
After
guys
you have
discussed it
residents.
to us
After you've
every-
been in the program for 12 calendar months, then you have the opportunity to port out.
Yes. We don't actually have too many people porting.
what is that number?
Is there I mean, it's not a big,
It's not a huge number. I don't have that offhand, but I could certainly get that.
Is that if you pour it out, so to speak, in another city, you continue to receive these benefits?
if that payment standard is in line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
You
and if
have to
they're
allow it.
absorbed by the housing authority, so a household or participant is able to port out, and they're able to find another housing authority that they would like to go through, they will get the paperwork from us, we will sign it, they will go ahead and port out, but it would be the same rules that they will be issued a voucher, they would be able to go and find a unit within that 60-day up to 120-day period, and if they're absorbed by that housing authority, then we don't fit the bill. But if it's not absorbed, then we fit the bill, and right now, we only have 2 households.
The third factor here is if we don't get the utilization up, and HUD does another, what they do is they take your calendar year, or they'll take how you're spending over 6 months, and they project out then what you should be getting the next calendar year, they'll just keep reducing your budget down. Now we lose less ability to rent units in West Dallas, so it's a balance game.
Give and take a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what they're kind of warning us about, is that if you're not using your dollars, and like I mentioned before,
They're gonna bring it back.
they want you to spend. It's a little bit different, not staying within budget, just spend your money and get it out there to help people. That's the goal of HUD.
Are there any other questions regarding item 3? Okay. Can I have a motion on the resolution, please?
I move for approval of the resolution in item 3.
Second, please. Second. It's been moved for approval. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay. You got one, that was Marty.
That's Don that
Don,
voted no.
yeah.
No, I meant on the.
I heard Don, or
Okay,
Marty
I
say.
know Don opposed, yes. Resolution passes. Unopposed. Item 4, reappointment by Patrick Fauci, Executive Director of the Community Development Authority of Residential Advisory Board members for a 3-year term to expire March 20th, 2026.
Mr. Chair,
go
Mr.
ahead,
Chair, this
Patrick.
is a partnership resolution between Danielle and Steve and me. Under the way this resident advisory board was set up, the executive director of the CDA makes appointments to the resident advisory board. The resident advisory board are participants in our housing program. And I just thought it was just that, in the past, it was just like a letter, and the executive director would sign it and pass it on. I just think it's best to put it publicly, who the people are on that board, and like the mayor came and met somebody at a meeting, and they said, I'm on the resident advisory board, and the mayor goes, who appoints those people? So this is a little bit more public awareness of who's on that committee, so,
You want me to read the letters, numbers?
no, you don't have
To
to.
read the people? All right.
So we have Antoinette Brown, Terrell Thomas, Michelle Anderson, Jerome Bunker, Joyce Garfield,
Garfield.
Garyfield.
Garfield.
Yeah, Todd
Okay.
Grenschel, and Sandra Rice. And if I said any name wrong, I apologize.
I move approval.
And we have been moved approval and second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, resolution passes. Item 5, resolution authorizing the submission of capital analysis grant application to Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, WEDC, to support economic development efforts to support a startup business. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, we have this resolution both on CDA and Common Council, mainly because the deadline is fast approaching. It's April 1st. We literally last week learned about this program, and it's a loan program from the state of Wisconsin. So if we took our CDBG economic development loans and half-mile TIF or any dollars that we might receive from FLIRE to help small businesses, we can match those dollars one for one through this Capital Catalyst program from the state of Wisconsin. Now, the idea is these funds can be used for startup businesses, not restaurants or bars or things like that, but it could start a brewery, a distillery, businesses within the last 5 years that have started. And so if we provide somebody a $50,000 loan, we can get, and it's a $100,000 project, $50,000 from the state. So we're leveraging West Allis resources to get additional funds. Those funds can be used as grants, equity, or loans. And any interest or premiums received off of those funds go back into an account so that it can be reloaned or reutilized to help further businesses in our community. So we're recommend you can apply for up to $500,000. We're recommending to apply up to $400,000 and submit that application. Some communities, I think it was Whitewater applied, it's the CDA. So we're just trying to figure out this week then what entity is going to apply and then figure out how the funds will be allocated in order to apply for this grant. And it's a deadline of April 1st. It'll be in the next fiscal year too, as well, but this is in the current federal or state budget year that they have around $600,000 remaining. So we're hoping to apply for those resources. I'm recommending that we do in order to help more businesses here in our city.
Is there any,
And I'll second.
okay, been moved for approval and second?
You had a question?
Go ahead, Mr. Niemeyer.
Just to clarify, the money from the state is a grant, right? Not
Yes.
a loan.
Correct.
We have the ability to either grant it or loan
Own it or put it in
We're
as
getting it
equity.
as a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good
Any
point. That's a
further
good deal.
questions?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Don. If not, would you take, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I have one question that is minor off topic, but still pertains to this. All right, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. The Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, is that the current WEDA? It used to be WEDA, or am I wrong with, yeah, tell me about,
Wisconsin Housing Economic, that's the one with the H.
yeah.
And then there's Wisconsin Economic Development Association, that's another WEDA, that's just our professional organization.
Okay,
Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation is what's just called the old Department of Commerce.
the old Department of Commerce. All right, thank you.
which is more not a official type of city or state.
It's quasi-public.
Quasi.
Quasi-private,
Yeah.
quasi-public, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
So item 5 passes. We go to item 6, resolution to approve the scope of service submitted by Rambo Environmental for preparations of Phase 1 environmental assessment and consultant with WDNR for property located at 5200 West Burnham Street, former Teledyne property. Patrick?
Mr. Chair, 5200 West Burnham is the former Teledyne site. It was a brownfield site. Here's some pictures of the old building that was there. It was torn down a number of years ago. The city has agreed with Milwaukee County to acquire this 8-acre parcel as part of the new DPW facility. And we can utilize our EPA brownfield or assessment grant that we have, which was up to $500,000. And we can utilize those funds to do a Phase 1 and Phase 2, et cetera. Now, there's been a lot of environmental work done under previous grants on this site, but before the city can buy this, so we're actually essentially approving a grant to the city to do the environmental work here on this site. And so this allows us to do the eligibility determination to the EPA and need to complete a Phase 1 before we acquire it. And then a meeting with the DNR when we decide to figure out how we're going to lay out the development and what conditions are currently that we know of, and talk about how we can lay out the building and utilize soils on the site. So that's kind of a remedial action plan. And that's, the cost is an estimate for Rambo to complete those services of $9,150.
Who owns this site?
It's currently owned by Milwaukee County. And the city is buying it for the DPW facility. So in order to save the taxpayers' money, we're using some of our grant dollars to help do that, so.
Yeah, and the county acquired it through a tax foreclosure.
Foreclosure,
So that went
yes.
down.
Any further discussion? Do they have a motion?
I move approval.
Second? Been moved for approval and second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Resolution passes. We'll go to item 7. Excuse me. Resolution to approve amendment number 4 for staging and grading of temporary easement agreement between the Community Development Authority of City of West Allis and Mandel Group Incorporated Group for Phase 2 of the market development south of National Avenue, Sona. Patrick?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn this one over to Sean Miller.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, if you recall, this is an agreement that we've amended a number of times. This will be the 4th time. And it's related to the area that we call Sona, south of National Avenue, which is bordered between National Avenue, South 66th Street or 6 Points Crossing, Mitchell Street on the south, and then there's a railroad spur along the west side of the site. Mandel Group has completed is near completion of the construction of the Sona Lofts building, which is a 110-unit building, which you can see up on the screen is on lot 1 of the 4-lot sort of area south of National Avenue. And within the other parcels, as part of that construction process, there was the need to move dirt around and things like that to make way for the building. So what this site access agreement allowed was for us to sell the lot 1 to Mandel Group and then allow them to move soils around onto lots. I'm sorry, they did that on lot 2, and they moved soils around onto lots 1, 3, and 4. And so that's really the nature of the site access agreement. The idea of extending the deadline from July 1st, 22 to July 1st of 23 is that, which you'll see is the next agenda item, and we'll talk into more detail on, is Makers Row is the next phase of the Sona development. And that will be on lots 1 and lots 3, which are along South 6 Points Crossing or South 66th Street. And so what this extension allows us to do is to continue to work with Bob Monnet on that portion of the project where we've seen a lot of good progress lately, and so wanting to extend this out to July of 23. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Bob Monnett's on.
not coming through too good.
I move approval.
Second? Okay, so we have two of them. Thank you. It's been moved for approval and second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 8, resolution approving amendment to the purchase and sales agreement, development agreement for the sale of land between the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas and Markers Road QOZB LLC. Patrick?
Mr. Chair, Sean and I will probably tag team a little bit on this. We're going to talk a little bit of the proposed development agreement that has been outlined between Makers Row QOZB LLC, which is, I believe, fully controlled by Bob Monnet, who is on the phone here this evening, attending by Zoom. And this is relative to Lot 1. You can kind of see it outlined here in red, which is part of the proposed Makers Row development that will be located around 66 and National Avenue, across just west of our farmers market. We pretty much have an outline of a development agreement where we would sell the land of around 2.9 acres for $1 to the developer. This has a range of around approximately $200,000 per acre. And in exchange, the LLC will receive the MRO from the TIF that is based off of the value of the property, which is around projected to be around $4.06 million. It'll be around 31,000 square feet of retail space. You can see both of these phases have gone through Plan Commission for approval. The first phase, so the next part of Makers Row is in 2 phases. So Lot 1 would have a 17,000 square foot building, and Lot 3 will have a 13,800 square foot building. That will start a few months later after the Lot 1 development starts. Overall, the financing is self-financing, as been pointed out. There'd be a variety of unique niche food, retail, maker spaces that are out, that you can kind of see visually within the renderings here, restaurant spaces and food production opportunities. I'll go with timeline.
Just briefly going over this is the timeline that's part of the development agreement, important aspect of it. It shows, the grading plan starting up here in April and for phase 1, and then, moving immediately into construction. And phase 1, construction process is scheduled to be completed in the summer of 2024. It shows, approximately May of 24 for when phase 1, would be opening up to the public. Phase 2 is not all that different of a timeline. Grading would kind of start. The grading, I think, plans will kind of go together as the 2 sites are adjacent to each other, phase 1 and phase 2, lots 1 and lots 3. So the grading will kind of be taking place hand in hand. And then construction of that will start a few months later, so July of this year, and then that's scheduled to be completed in late summer of '24.
So when we did a recent TIF model, we're seeing a value projection of MRO payments of around $1.5 million over the 27-year lifespan of the TIF. Now, we'll go over a little bit more of those details in closed session on the MRO payments, but usually in our development agreements and developer finance agreements, these annual payments are approved by Common Council annually as part of the schedule that is outlined within the developer finance agreement. You can kind of see here, this is a close-up of what we're seeing, those annual MRO payments. Now, $4 million, it has a lower amount of taxes coming in on it. We are also dealing with different food type of businesses. As part of the development agreement, we also put in some covenants about uses on the site. So the idea here is that as this project continues and is sustained, we don't want it to evolve into the next type of use, which could be a bank, drive-through type of, uses that aren't part of the goal of what the CDA outlined in terms of development at this site. The idea was to create a destination, something that's unique. As Sean's pointed out here, you can go over this.
Yeah, so this just within the zoning code, we talked about this at a previous meeting, but the zoning code obviously restricts things to a certain level based on the base zoning of the area. And then within that, the agreement will restrict things even more so that we're trying to create an interesting place with this to add to the farmer's market and the redevelopments around it. And so these use restrictions, which would restrict beyond just the C3 district, you can just see the list of uses that would be restricted beyond existing zoning. And we're doing that to help keep the character of the site in the long term.
The idea here within the development finance agreement, we do have a refinancing clause where we're sharing in the proceeds if the developer refinances the property and achieves certain priority distributions. So once they hit the 8%, and then it's shared after that point, there's a split in terms of if there's profit, cashing out from the project in the future. I mean, a lot of this is, where the current interest rates are, and maybe they're going to evolve here in a short period of time. Who knows what's going on in the financial markets today? But construction cost savings agreement, you might remember this from other development agreements we have. If there's savings on the budget, then we would also split those savings in terms of on the construction costs. We'll go over the balance of the agreement in closed session, but since we have Mr. Modit on Zoom, is there anything you wanted to share with the CDA this evening?
No, I appreciate your consideration of the request, the items before you. This has obviously been an incredibly challenging project to pull together. It was a little bit, it's out there on the curve in terms of being optimistic. Food and beverage is just hard. Older people will tell you how hard it is to run one food and beverage business. Trying to corral 7 at once has been quite the trick. But we have really high quality vendors. We recovered from the loss of Valentine, and we're backfilling that space right now with some really interesting food producers. The biggest challenge, because we thought is trying to get construction financing is just ridiculous for this type of a deal right now. So we made the difficult decision to finance, basically essentially finance it with equity, and then hopefully in the future, as things settle out, we might be able to put some leverage on the property and originate some equity and take debt and take out some of the equity. But otherwise, it's kind of all in, and we are signing contracts right now. When we're moving forward, we want to move forward, but obviously we have paperwork we got to get done with you folks before we start moving forward. But at long last, we'll finally be able to see the commercial component of this entire development ensemble come together once and for all.
Thank you, Mr. Modit. Anybody else have questions? Or anything on-
Questions of Bob? No? Do you still want to go into closed
But
session?
I'm looking for extra co-investors. Maybe I should have been a little bit more optimistic.
They had ex-
It probably should not be members of this committee, though.
Yeah, right.
Okay, then make sure that no one's on the.
All right, thank you. We'll now go into closed session. For agendas, items 7 and 8, committee may convene